Welcome to Politics Not Included, where we get to know the person, not their policy. We're creating a space to have real conversations with your elected officials and election candidates to get to know them as a person first. We're hoping these conversations will make it easier to approach and engage your local leadership. Now, before we get started with today's episode, I have a couple of ground rules to cover as always. The first is, Politics Not Included is hosted by the Transparent Campaign Initiative. And in the spirit of transparency, these episodes will be published without being edited. And we're doing this to keep this platform neutral and authentic to all of the guests that we have on the show. Now, what that means for you as a listener or a viewer if you're on our YouTube channel is that you may witness or hear longer pauses than anticipated or some bloopers or stumbling over words. And that's because you're watching or listening to this conversation as if it were live. You're hearing the whole thing in its entirety. And I'm excited to get to share these conversations with you in a true and authentic form. And that leads me to rule number 2, that as you're watching or listening to this, if you have any comments that creep up in your head that if you were sitting in this room with us, you may not have the confidence to say to our face, or you may not feel like the best human being if you did, I'm going to ask you to keep that in your head and out of the comments. And that's because we're just trying to have conversations to get to strengthen our community and to build each other up rather than tear each other down. And in order to do that, I think we need to keep the comments kind. Now that all of that is out of the way, let's get this show started. Just one note before we get started with today's episode. All Manhattan City Commission candidates have been invited to appear as a guest on Politics Not Included. Today we're joined by Martha Sweeney. Martha is the office manager for the K-State rowing team. She is also a current Manhattan City Commission candidate for the election coming up in November. Martha, welcome to Politics Not Included.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. I'm really excited to get to know you a little bit better and to dive into some of your background and your experiences and why you felt led over time to run for City Commission now. So to get us started, can you tell us where you're from originally and how long have you been in Manhattan?
Okay, well, originally I'm from a small town in Northern California. Born and raised there. My family is still all back there. Went to college in the San Francisco Bay Area. Got my degree in genetics and then went on to get my master's in plant genetics at University of Cambridge in England. So went a little further afield. And during this time, both at UC Berkeley and then at Cambridge, I was involved in the rowing teams there. So that's going to be a recurring theme.
Yeah. Rowing is important in your life.
And my husband, he is British. He was involved with the British rowing team, both as competitor and coach. And so we were there at the same time. Once I received my master's, I decided I'm not done with rowing. So I continued training and eventually earned a spot on the U.S. rowing team.
Wow, that's really cool.
So, and again, while I was doing that, my husband Patrick was doing his thing in rowing. We got married, came back to the States. He was hired by the Belgian national team to coach, went to Belgium. Our daughter was born in Belgium. And when that contract was finished, realized, okay, international rowing, not so good when you have a child. So came back to the States, and Patrick eventually got hired as the head coach of K-State women's rowing, and I was hired as the office and operations manager, and that's what brought us here.
Yeah, that's a really cool background. I mean, to be on a national rowing team, and I kind of want to break down pieces and parts of that to get to know you a little bit better. So let's go back to, you said genetics, right?
Yeah.
So what led you to the field of wanting to pursue a degree in genetics?
I always was interested in biology in general, and of course this is the early 80s when biotech was just, becoming a big thing. But I was not so much interested in the medical side of it and biotech as such. I felt I was more leaning towards natural processes in biology. And so I just, in general, had an interest in genetics. And then once I got my degree, realized that what I wanted to pursue was plant genetics. And with the idealistic goal of, helping to feed the world, by using nature's processes of building a better bean plant, but not necessarily with bioengineering, but just natural selection processes. I have to say I got a little disillusioned while I was at Cambridge doing my master's, that grants and such seemed to be more oriented towards designing plants that would withstand pesticides and herbicides and things. That was not so much what I wanted to get into. And concurrently, I was also doing the rowing thing. So I kind of branched away from the science and was doing the rowing, and then was going to see what life led me to after that.
Yeah. And then how did you end up at Cambridge? That's a pretty big
so like
change.
I say, I came from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I kind of had narrowed it down as far as pursuing a master's to UC Davis, which was like an hour away from where I grew up, or University of Cambridge, which had a set plant breeding program. And it wasn't that big a decision. I kind of had to look at the finances and all, and it turned out to be, affordable, which surprised me. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna go somewhere new, completely new.
Yeah. Was that a big transition to go from living in the States? I assume you grew up in California, right?
Yeah.
Your whole life, and then went to England. What was that transition like?
It's really interesting because, of course, I'm thinking to myself, it's an English-speaking country. This is going to be no big deal. And initially, everything, was fine as far as adjusting. I mean, there were, of course, little, customs and things that were fun to get to know about. But it was about 6 months into being there, and I started realizing there's certain little, mainly vocabulary things that are just used differently. And so they're the same word, but they're used in a different context. I think the first one that was that confused me was when someone said they were going to go revise their paper, and I said something along the lines of, I've got to rewrite mine as well. And revise in England means to review.
Oh, okay.
It's just little things like that, and it just kind of like, over time, it's, that's how you use the word. We use it this way. But anyway, that in itself was really interesting, and I found it enjoyable to actually learn those little differences. Yeah. And then, of course, I was kind of going back and forth and visiting family at the holidays and such, and I was told multiple times when I was in the States what a British accent I had. But of course, when I was in England, I was a total Yank. So I had that kind of like in between two worlds going on for a while. But it was really, very enjoyable and educational experience in a lot of different ways.
Did you grow up rowing, or did you start the rowing experience in your bachelor's? I mean, I assume you would have to start earlier than just jumping in college, or? No,
that was actually the whole reason I got into rowing, because in high school, I was into backpacking in the summer and recreational tennis. Just I had not belonged to an organized team of any kind, and so when I got to Berkeley, I thought I'd really like to pursue a sport, but it became very apparent that at Cal, if you hadn't done your sport in high school or even longer, you weren't going to be recruited, and hard to be a walk-on. But then I saw a poster for, and they call it crew, in those days anyway, come out, we will teach you how to do it. So I thought, well, that was purpose made for me. I'm going to go try it. So, and then it didn't take long before I realized, okay, this is a really hard sport, and both technically and physically. And but I'm just going to keep doing it till they tell me that I'm not suited for it. And then it just kept going. And I certainly got just very much addicted to it, I guess. It's one of those sports that you just always feel like there's more to perfect, and especially because it's a team sport, individual, and that you're really having to push yourself to get the best out of yourself, but team sport, and that has to be so perfectly in sync, and you're always looking for that perfect feeling, and sometimes that perfect feeling happens in a practice, not even in a race that you've been preparing for, and it's just a real satisfying experience. And so that kept me going for, as I mentioned, quite a few years.
Yeah,
so.
I've tried a rowing machine a few times, and after 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to move on to the next thing. So.
Yeah. No, I've done a lot of rowing machine hours, and that can get monotonous. And in my day, we had, I don't even know if you know what this is, a Sony Walkman.
Yeah.
Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
with the cassette tape.
Yep.
And so that got me through a lot of hours of the monotonous ergs.
Yeah.
But
It also is very mesmerizing to watch, like, the synchronization that takes place. Are you constantly communicating? Like, what's the level of communication to keep everybody in sync? Or, like, I know nothing about rowing. So.
Okay, well, there are different boats, racing boats, and some of them have what's called a coxswain, who is a littler person who sits in the back and has a mic, and there's a sound system that goes through the boat, and he or she is actually steering, especially with eights. That would be impossible for a rower to steer. So they have rudder lines, and it controls the rudder and keeps the boat on course, but they're also able to give instructions and even pick on particular people to get their blade in the water quicker, or pull it out cleaner, and so that is actually a very important role. In fact, that's what my husband did as a competitor. He was involved in quite a few years of British rowing. Won the silver medal at the Montreal Olympics in 1976 with his crew. So he's been doing rowing all his life, and so there are other boats that do not have a coxswain, and one of the rowers has a foot pedal that steers the rudder, which I've done before. It's not my favorite thing. It's a little nerve-wracking when you're trying to pull as hard as you can and race as hard as you can, and you also got to keep the boat straight.
Yeah.
So some boats are just kind of silent. You're just in your zone, and nobody's telling you what to do. You're just going from start to finish. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite size, like boat size? I don't know what the right term
I mean,
is.
So the 8 and 4 are the two that I've had the most experience in. And the 8 all through college, and then the 4 was what I raced in at the national team level. So, and I enjoy both in different ways. The 8 is more like a big machine, and that's where you can really feel just the speed and the power of 8 people moving together. But the 4 is, I don't know, I guess you'd say more intimate with the water. You kind of experience more. Moving the shell, and so anyway, they're both different. It's interesting that they're different, but also the same. You're same goal: put the blade in the water, and pull the boat past the blade, and go as fast as you can.
And then you also did that at Cambridge too.
Yeah.
Is that where you met your husband?
Well, actually, we met in California because he was my rowing coach.
Okay.
At UC Berkeley. And then I decided to go on and get my master's, so I ended up in England. And they have a great club rowing system in England. So once I got my master's, I stayed to train because it was a really great place to train. In that meantime, Pat had been kind of called back to Britain to get re-involved with the British Olympic team. And so he ended up over there at the same time. And so, of course, we got together. And then one thing, 10 years later, 10 years since Cal, later, we ended up getting married in London. So,
wow, that's
so it was kind of a delayed, relationship, or one relationship turned into a different one a little bit later. So,
And then you said you moved from there to, I forget, you moved
well, back to the States, because at that time I wasn't sure, as I had said, once my rowing career was over, what I wanted to pursue, and Patrick wasn't sure if he wanted to, after all those decades, stay involved in rowing as well. We moved back to the States. My father had started a small advertising agency when I was a baby, and it was still going. But he was getting kind of close to thinking about retirement, and so there was a possibility. Okay, maybe I would fit into that. It really a small agency, so kind of when he decided to step down, it was almost like if a family member didn't come in, it was just going to kind of go away. So it was a possibility that might be something. I had certainly worked there, every vacation, summertime. So I kind of knew the ropes, but I certainly wasn't at all sure about it. But that's what brought us back to California at that time. Then Pat got the request to come over to Belgium. So we got up and went to Belgium.
And then how long were you in Belgium?
Not quite 5 years.
Okay.
So about 4.5 years. It took the team through the Olympics. I have to remember. Anyway, it was the late 90s, whatever, 98. Or the 2000 Olympics. Is that Seoul? I can't remember. Anyway, and that in itself was a really interesting experience for both of us. Belgium has 3 official languages, and so there's the Flemish side, which speaks Dutch, and the Walloon side, which speaks French, and then there's a tiny corner that speaks German, and anytime you have to do anything official, it has to be in triplicate in 3 different languages. And one challenge coming in as the Olympic rowing coach is the sides kind of have, there are stresses between the sides. And so in a lot of previous years, you would have just the boat made up of just one group or the other. Okay. And Pat came in and said, no, let's get the best. Let's get the best rowers together for your Olympic team. And that was a little bit of a challenge that he had to, there were some that kind of grumbled about it. But in the end, certainly the rowers who came from, different places, they got along perfectly well. It was just another example of how, get to know the person and not what you think of as the politics or the culture or whatever. And so anyway, it was for him, it was a successful coming together of different parties. So yeah, it was good. And then, as I mentioned, our daughter was born there during that time. And so that was a whole new phase beginning of our life.
How old was she when you moved back?
She was just about to turn 3.
Okay.
So she has vague memories. Yeah. She has a couple, just memories of the backyard or, something, like that. But
do you ever go back and visit?
We did go back, I think it was in 2007, to visit Patrick's family in England, and then we also went over to Belgium and kind of reacquainted our daughter with where she was born, and so that was a cool trip.
Yeah, that's fun. And then from there, he started at K-State, and then you also started working at K-State.
Yes, yeah.
Along the same timeline.
Exactly. Well, actually, our daughter and I, we moved out not quite a year after Pat began coaching at K-State. He received the offer in August of 2003, and our daughter was already registered in kindergarten and kind of settled into what she was doing. And so we thought, okay, you go ahead and see if everything is good. And everything was great. And of course, we came out and visited. And so daughter and I moved out, a year later. And then they had just started the position of office manager and operations manager. Administrative assistant is the overall title, but it's a big team, and so I took that position, and it was definitely seemed to be helpful that I had a good amount of experience in rowing, and so kind of knew the ropes.
And what were some of the things that you were doing in that role?
So the main function is we get a set budget every year. So I am monitoring the budget and the expenses and keeping track of what's needed and what we can purchase this year and wait till next year. And so there's just a lot of that, because some things come up, like a boat needs to be repaired or a trailer or whatever, and so then that affects your, what else you can do that year. But some things are just very set. I also do all the travel arranging for the team, so and that's really the biggest part of the operating budget, and that's pretty much for the most part, it's a pretty set kind of schedule, kind of go back to the same places, and so I have a real relationship with the hotels that are especially that the team likes, and so in some ways it's a little bit rote, some of what I do, but then there's always unexpected things cropping up, and and then just the running of the office, when we need more paper and pens and that kind of. So it's kind of just everything the coaches do not have time to do.
And then your husband is retiring or retired or
semi-retired.
Okay.
So he's going to be around and helping with some of the coaching and just kind of a little bit guiding. His second in command assistant coach has taken over as head coach, and that's fantastic, and she is wonderful, and she's going to do such a great job. But there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, especially nowadays. It's just more and more nowadays, behind the scenes stuff that has nothing to do really with coaching, but has a lot more to do with just rules and regulations and things that come down from NC2A, or now even things that are coming down from Congress with, there's the whole issue of athletes being compensated for being athletes, and a lot of new stuff. So so he's going to help with all kind of that stuff that she would not have had so much experience with, and then just helping her with planning training calendars and such. So it's a really great, we were really happy that it worked out this way, because it's a great transition. I was going to stay on anyway in my capacity, but we're happy that it worked this way, and so he can cut back on his hours. He's kind of tired of the the long days, as I said, but doing it all his life. And really, he's looking forward to being involved and doing some things that he didn't have the chance to do, like work more with the first years. And so it turned out really well how we're transitioning.
Yeah. So what's a normal day look like for you? Like, you go in, what's a normal day look like? And then how do you think that commissioner roles would potentially fit into that? Yeah,
well, the thing that's great about what I do is it's got a lot of flexibility built in, which I was especially grateful for when our daughter was growing up, because it meant I could do, participate in anything they needed at school, or be involved that way.
Yeah, that's
so
huge.
it was really, really great. And then in recent years, it's also how everything is electronic now. I'm able to work really, whether it's from home or if I'm away. I can do remotely, which has been great, because my father passed away 3 years ago, and that kind of sort of changed how we were thinking about our mom and her care. And I've been able to, as I said, my siblings are out there. My sister actually lives in the house with my mom now, but I, of course, wanted to travel. I wanted to visit more often and help where I could. And so my job allowed me to do that.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
And I am able remotely to do, my mom is not doing her financial stuff anymore, and so that's something I could set up online and contribute to the family remotely as well. So it's kind of been, our daughter grew up, and then it was, okay, thinking about parents now.
Yeah.
and so the flexibility that's built into to the rowing job really allowed me to do that. So for as far as city commission, it fits in really well with being able to have that time that I can devote to. I know there's going to be a learning curve, regardless of how much I try to get up on the issues and the policies and all, but until you're there, there's stuff you're not going to know you don't know. So I feel like I'm got a perfect setup that I can devote myself to that learning curve, and I would look forward to it.
Yeah. And then what made you decide to want to run, and why now?
Yeah. To be honest, as our daughter was growing up and graduated from high school, and I was thinking, I now have more time, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do to get involved with the community, and wasn't necessarily thinking of elected office, but I was just trying to figure out, okay, what would suit me, and how could I contribute, and so kind of going through that process, and COVID hit, and so that all kind of just stopped. And then coming out of those COVID years, and just, I'll be honest, the way politics as a whole started going, and just the atmosphere we were all feeling ourselves in, the polarization, the just not knowing, who to believe, and why is everyone so vindictive and arguing so much, and I was getting so frustrated and feeling, okay, yes, I vote and I stay up on all the issues, but feeling frustrated that I can't do much about this, about the big politics picture, and yet it was really affecting how I felt about the world. And so that's kind of what made me feel like, okay, well, let's turn our attention to our own community, and that's something I could possibly certainly get involved in, whether I am elected or not. I can definitely contribute to my community and our little corner of the world.
That's great. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that like most people that everybody I've interacted with, especially at the local level, you're a community member that wants to do good things for your community, and so this seems like a way that you can do it, and it's nice to hear people say that too,
and I feel like it's kind of a pervasive feeling nowadays. I think people are there is a general frustration with just kind of the, loggerheads that it seems so many of, the politicians at the higher levels are at. And so, when you're in your own community, these are your neighbors, and you don't necessarily agree on every issue, but, hopefully you totally have in common that you care about your community and want to see the best for it, and that you care about each other, because we are neighbors, and we're a lot more alike in I think, than we are different. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this is your first time running a campaign.
No, yes.
So what would you say is the biggest hurdle you've had to face so far?
I guess number one, hearing me have to hearing my own voice in this kind of situation. I'm trying to just kind of just stay relaxed about it, but I'm not used to that.
Yeah.
So this is nice because it feels one-on-one. I'm still getting used to to the bigger crowd or whatever, but and then just I guess the idea of having to promote yourself is new for me. So and I'm just kind of getting going on that. So got a website set up, and going to start contributing thoughts and issues, and so just slowly but surely getting there.
Yeah. What's one thing you would like people to know about you before they head to the polls?
Well, I feel like the number one thing I would bring to the city commission or any endeavor, any situation really, are my core values. I am not going to pretend to know all the ins and outs of every issue at this point in time. I am very capable of, when an issue is presented, to study as hard as I need to make sure I understand. I mean, it's not even just two sides sometimes to an issue. There can be multiple sides, and I feel like, along with my core values, I have a very strong desire to hear all sides, hear all perspectives, and that would be my main focus on whatever issue you're talking about, is to make sure. I would like to feel that as a commissioner I would be promoting, encouraging all voices to come and be heard, and I think sometimes that happens better than other times, and so that would be a very important thing to me.
Mm-hmm. And then I have one more question, and then we'll move into the same 3 questions I ask everybody at the end of the interview. So you've been in the middle of running a campaign for several months now. I know you have several months to go, and things are going to be heating up a little bit. But what's one thing you wish more people knew about running for an elected position?
I mean, and I'm sure it also depends on personality of the individual, but for me, just be prepared for it to feel overwhelming initially, and don't be scared of that. It's very, I believe, natural, because you've got, especially the people that were encouraging you to do it, and that's great. You need that. It's great if you have that, but everyone has different ideas about what you should be doing and how you should be doing it, and you have to kind of filter, and also make sure that you are being true to yourself. And of course, there's going to be messages you're going to want to get out there, but make sure that you keep your personality. You're not changing who you are. You're presenting yourself for a specific job, but do it as you, and don't try to be anybody else.
And then, so the last 3 questions. Do you remember the first time you voted?
Well, it was when I was 18, so when I was eligible when I was first eligible to vote. And so I, to be honest, I can't remember. I know that I did vote when I first became eligible. I can't remember, how I specifically felt. But I think I'm quite sure it was how I feel really every time I vote. I really get a kind of proud pang about it, and that hasn't changed. So it's so important. I wish more people took advantage of their right, because we have too many people that don't vote, and I would definitely like to see a lot more of our country take part. But yeah, it's always a proud feeling.
That leads perfectly into question number 2. So why is voting important to you?
Oh, well, it is the one voice we have when it comes to how our community, state, country. It's our one way of contributing our voice to how we would like to see our values reflected at those different levels. And I think we're finding more and more just how important our voices are. I worry a little bit right now, just the way things are going, that we'll all be able to equally share our voices by our vote. But it's the only way that we can have a democracy, is that all our voices are heard through our vote, at least through our vote. Yeah.
And then where can people follow you? Like, how can they find messages for your campaign? Or
well, as I said, with my daughter's help, because she's much more tech savvy than I, finally set up my campaign website, martha4mhk.com. And so that's mainly where I'll be updating. I'm also on Facebook, Martha4MHK, and I think my daughter linked up the Facebook to the Instagram, so
follow all the links.
So.
Yeah, that's great. I'll wrap us up by saying follow us on our social media pages for announcements for new episodes. You can follow us on Instagram at Transparent Campaigns. Our Facebook page is Transparent Campaign Initiative. And for more information on the Manhattan City Commission election coming up, you can go to our website, transparentcampaigns.org, for more information. Martha, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you again so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.